I'm kchoi, welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to be doing a grad school Q&A, specifically going to grad school in the UK as a foreigner. I've accumulated these questions from the comment sections of previous YouTube videos of mine, as well as from an Instagram post I did a few days ago. Most of the questions from the Instagram post are general study abroad related, and I filmed a separate Q&A for study abroad questions on my friend Katie's channel, so after you watch this one, go check that one out if you want to know even more about studying and living abroad. I'm just going to be looking down at my computer here so I don't miss anything, so that's what I'm looking at. How did you select your program? Before I came to grad school, I was working in public relations for about 2 to 3 years, but I realized 1.5 to 2 years into it that I wanted to learn more and expand my skill set, do something else. I also had a coworker who did her graduate degree in London, so that was kind of what made it seem realistic to me that I could pursue a master's degree in London or in the UK. Initially, I was looking at communications and marketing related degrees because that is what my work was in. But after looking at the curriculums and everything, I realized that it was a bit too similar to what I was already learning through my job. So I did more research and I decided instead to pursue a degree in management or business. In terms of selecting my specific program, which is the Master's in Management at UCL, just researched different business schools and business programs in England. I ended up applying to 3. I applied to London Business School, Manchester Business School, and UCL, where I am now. I didn't apply to King's College, I think because they don't have a Master's in Management degree, if I'm not incorrect. And I didn't apply to London School of Economics because their Master's in Management degree is 2 years. So I weighed location, the content of the curriculum, and the length of time to figure out which ones I wanted to apply to. I think the important thing to know when you are deciding to pursue a graduate degree is you have to be a lot more intentional than you are when selecting your bachelor's degree. With almost any bachelor's, you can get so many different types of jobs, but masters are a bit more specific, so you have to have a bit more of a solid idea of what you want to do after that degree. Did you do a part-time or full-time course, and why? I chose a full-time course because I didn't think that I could handle working and going to school at the same time, because I had been out of college for a few years and I didn't think I could balance the two at the same time. Also, because I was looking to move abroad for grad school, it wouldn't be realistic for me to select a part-time program and end up living here for 2 years instead of 1. And on top of that, try to find a job to make enough money to live here for that long. Fortunately, I had the luxury of focusing just on school full-time because I had saved enough money for my tuition and my living expenses. Are there any particular resources to help with choosing the right school? I'm considering getting an MBA. I honestly just used Google and I used a lot of forums. I read a lot of different business and MBA forums to read people's thoughts and reviews on different programs and universities. I think I can speak a bit more in terms of deciding between a Master's in Management or an MBA because I was also applying to some MBA programs in the United States. Some of the determining factors are how much work experience you have, how much time you have, and how much money you want to spend on your education. For a Master's in Management, there isn't any work experience requirement. Actually, some universities, London Business School for example, they only want you to have a maximum of 1 year of work experience, but in my program there are people who came straight from their undergraduate degree and people who have worked for 3 years like me, 2 years, 4 years, 5. It's like a big range. At an MBA, the average work experience that you need to have is 5 years. The cost I'll get into more detail a little bit later in the video, but in general, Master's in Management programs are cheaper than MBA programs. And for time, Master's in Management programs are shorter because most of them are in Europe and the UK, where master's degrees are 1 year. And an MBA or pretty much any other master's in the US is going to take you 2 years full time. What were the general requirements when you applied to UCL? It's pretty much the same as any university application. You need a personal statement. For UCL, the GPA requirement for your undergraduate degree is a 2.1. or upper second class degree, which is about a 3.2 GPA in the US. I also needed 2 letters of recommendation, and for this program I was able to use 1 academic and 1 professional recommendation. And my applications were due in October of 2015, so I contacted my professor and let my manager know in about late July to early August, so that gave them a couple months to prepare the recommendations. And another requirement is the application fee, which you're gonna have to pay for when you apply to schools. Did you need to take the GMAT for your applications? No, I did not, and I actually didn't even take the GMAT at all. I took the GRE. The GRE wasn't even required for my UCL application. It was just an optional thing that you could add in order to enhance your application, so that's what I did. Even though UCL didn't require a GRE, some of the other programs did, like LBS for example. And the MBA programs I applied to in the US required either the GRE or the GMAT, so I decided to do the GRE because it's generally easier than the GMAT. And in terms of timing for when I took that exam, I signed up for it in December or January 2014. My exam was in June 2015, and then my application was in October 2015. Did your application get affected by your bachelor's degree results, or was it based on the work experience you had? Like I mentioned, there was a degree or grade requirement for my bachelor's degree, but for my application it was a mix of both because my personal statement incorporated my whole journey of doing an English literature degree in my undergrad, and then the work I did and what I wanted to do afterwards with my master's. So it was a mix of both. Is it easy to get a scholarship, and what do they usually cover? I'm not too sure actually, because I don't have a scholarship or anything. I do have some friends who have come to this program that I'm in through a scholarship. So it is possible, and I also know when I applied I was automatically entered, automatically considered for this international student scholarship, which I think 1 or 2 students get, and it's like a £10,000 scholarship. There was also a list of scholarships that I could apply to, but a lot of them didn't apply to me. Personally, I don't have experience with getting a scholarship, but there are resources out there. What is the typical tuition cost both for local and international students? This answer is going to be specific to UCL graduate programs. My program is about £24,000 for the tuition for 1 year, and it's a 1-year program. But the master's programs in general at UCL seem to range from $10,000 to $25,000 for overseas students, and $6,000 to $25,000 for UK or EU students. So my program is definitely on the more expensive side. For MBA programs, which UCL doesn't have yet, but I think they will be starting one in fall 2018. Those are about $35,000 to $40,000 a year, so it's about $70,000 to $80,000 total because those are 2-year programs. But in general, the tuition is cheaper than the US, and that was one of the major factors that influenced me to come here. Going along with money, how much should I set aside for living expenses and a rental if there are no dorms for postgrad students for a particular college? I live in a dorm. I was able to apply through the housing application at UCL, but I do have friends who live just in regular flats. I'm not sure what their rent is, but when you do your visa application, there is something in the instructions that tells you how much you're supposed to have saved up for your visa. And I think when I applied, it said that you needed about £1,100 per month, but I think that's kind of like an arbitrary number that they just use. It depends on if you're sharing a room, if you want your own room, but I've heard of places that are as cheap as £500 a month or as expensive as almost £2,000 a month. So you would have to look at the housing market and see. I know that spareroom.co.uk is what a lot of people use to find a flat, so maybe you could see there what the average prices are. Apart from your living situation, other living expenses include your transportation, especially in London. I have a year-long student travel card, so I have unlimited travel now on the tube and the bus because I paid a flat fee for it. But if you end up living really close to your lectures where you'll be spending most of your days, you might not need a travel card because you might not be using public transportation that much. Apart from accommodation, tuition, and public transportation, I budget around $450 to $500 a month for laundry, groceries, cell phone service, health and beauty, coffee and snacks, dining, entertainment, travel, shopping, etc. I go over some months, I have to go under some other months, and now I do have a part-time job to help supplement my travel expenses. That's not really a concrete number, but maybe that's somewhere you can start to think about how much you want to save up, and then you can adjust from there. Going along with accommodation, do you live in student housing or a regular apartment? Any tips on finding something when you're an ocean away? As I said, I live in student housing. It was a really easy process for me, and that's why I chose to do student housing. I just had to fill out the form through my university application. I couldn't select exactly where I wanted to live, but I just had to rank my priorities. So mine were that I had my own room, I had ensuite, as in my own bathroom, and it was self-catered, so I didn't want any meals provided. I wanted to cook my own meals. I found out where I was placed about 2 months before I left, and when I got to London, I just went to the reception area of my building, checked in, and it was easy as that. If you're looking for a flat, then again, spareroom.co.uk is, I think, the most popular way to do that. I know some people who, when they were flat hunting in London, had to stay in an Airbnb while they were looking for a place, but I also know others who got lucky and just Skyped the people that they were going to live with, and it worked out for them that way. How much is rent in London? My student accommodation is a little over £1,000 a month, and as I said earlier, I'm not too sure about flat prices, but it's probably around the same, £1,000 on average, but you do have to pay separately for internet, utilities, that kind of thing. One thing I do know is that a lot of flat prices are listed as per week, so it might look really cheap, but it's per week. And you do pay per month, but for some reason they list the flats per week. How do you find the schoolwork compared to that of an undergrad program? My course in particular, since it's a management business course, has a lot of group work. So I remember there was one week where I had a group project due on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and it was really brutal. But it's a mix of being more and less challenging than my undergrad degree. It's challenging because everything is crammed into a short amount of time, because it's a 12-month program, and actually the classes are only 10 weeks per term, and there is just a lot of reading. And I was an English major, but I think I had more reading for this Master's in Management course. Even though there were those challenges and I was learning subjects that I had never covered before, I just felt more motivated, so that made it a little less challenging because I was more driven to really learn and dedicate myself to my studies. Like I was saying at the beginning of the video, doing a master's program is a bit more intentional than an undergraduate degree usually. So I could clearly see how I could apply what I was learning to my future. Are you a member of any school organizations? Yes, I am in the swimming club. Did you find it difficult to get used to living in a new city and studying at the same time? It's challenging, but I wouldn't say it's difficult. I've been lucky to have had a lot of visitors from back home since I've been here, so in terms of adjusting and feeling homesick, I didn't experience that too much because I got to see old friends every other month basically. And I also went home over Christmas and over Easter, so that also helped with adjusting. I've also lived abroad before when I was an undergrad student in the UK, so it was a bit more familiar to me, and that made it easier as well. It does take a while to get into a routine of balancing your schoolwork and your social life. I do prioritize my studying, but I don't let it dictate everything that I do. I'll treat myself by spending a whole day not opening a book, or by going to a play, which I've done almost every month this year so far, which I'm really glad about. I was also used to the British academic culture. It's a lot more independent studying here, and the writing style and standards are different, but I had gone through that before, so I didn't have as much of a culture shock in that sense. I think what challenges me is finding that happy medium between constantly exploring and seeing new places, and then like having a routine and really settling in and feeling like I'm living in this city. But I think that challenge is what makes it fun, and that's what makes the experience of living abroad. And the last question, how do you transition when living abroad? Any mistakes or learning experiences? I think I answered some of that in the last question, but again, it's about finding the balance between having a routine and making yourself feel at home, and exploring and seeing new places all the time. Obviously, going to a new city, it's really exciting and you want to explore all that it has to offer, but at the same time, you want to make yourself feel at home to some extent. For me, I love to have a routine and I love to feel settled in, but I try to push myself not to get too comfortable because I know I'm not going to stay here forever. I mean, I'm leaving in September, so I just try to make the most of being in this awesome city. For mistakes or learning experiences, Don't get into the trap of just hanging out with the same people and doing the same things every day, even though I just said that you need to find a bit of a routine to transition. But what I mean is talk to different kinds of people. If you're American, don't just talk to other Americans. Join a club at your university. I didn't join any clubs when I was studying abroad at University of Bristol, so I really wanted to join one when I came here, and that's why I joined the swim team. London especially has people from all over the world. I actually hear different accents and languages more than I hear a British accent in London, which means there's so much to learn and so many different perspectives to see from. So don't make the mistake of closing yourself off to meeting all different kinds of people, because it's really the people you meet and the community that you make around yourself that makes a place special. Really invest your time in building that community that you want, that is going to support you, that's going to help you grow while you're living abroad. Okay, that is it for this grad school Q&A. I hope it was helpful. Again, there are even more study abroad questions that my friend Katie and I answered on her channel, so check that out if you still have some more unanswered questions about studying abroad. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!